tight, mimi machokodo. Utuwapo mademo wakaipo. Basi nipe mpigege manifurahi, wewe kiboko. Mwalimu wako fundi hatari, oh. Samantha, oh Samantha, oh baby, say baby, Samantha.
Wanauliza kwani remix inatoka siku gani? Majuda tu. Wanauliza kwani remix inatoka siku gani? Majuda tu. Wanauliza kwani remix inatoka siku gani? Majuda tu. Wanauliza kwani remix inatoka siku gani? DNA Kaya, Bishop, Jimwa. Wanauliza kwani remix inatoka siku gani? Majuda tu. Wanauliza kwani remix inatoka siku gani?
CNG Big Mimi niko tayari kupa kujipamba vinasti na kuchanganya msichana kiasi, nimkuze pale niulize anasikiaje.
Rumors are spreading, I deny. You don't know my story, I deny. Keep on confessing, I deny. On my case, you've been heavy on my case. In my face, cherry on lying in my face. You need to rest, I'm so vexed. You're messing with my head, I know you envy my flex. God blocking my blessings. You're not ready, oh you're not ready. You can't party in my confetti. Woke you up petty, niko happy. Nakata maisha na masheti. So many lies about me, I deny. Rumors are spreading, I deny. You don't know my story, I deny. Keep on confessing, I deny. Niliota ndoto, eti nimetoka soko. Emotional damage, roho nimeweka bandage. Mapenzi haina socket, haifichiki kwa pocket. Mara mingi tuko underwear, suruali underwear. You're not ready, you can't party in my confetti. Woke you up eti niko happy. Nakata maisha na masheti. You're not ready, you can't party in my confetti. Woke you up eti niko happy. Nakata
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back again. Mnajua kama kawaida sabotage. Kulikuwa na sabotage. Kuna msee alikuwa anasema yani leo studio imekuwa MSNBC and Fox News combined put together.
Combination.
Yeah, but kuna sabotage. Kuna mtu alikanyaga wire pali. But ni sawa cause we are right back. And tonight we're going to go straight into the social segment because politics segment ya leo, it had to be the longest politics segment we've ever done. If there's a Guinness Book of World Records of one mic, this would have been the longest politics segment. Because
And by the way,
tulikuwa na-
is party people there? Party people.
yeah, tulikuwa na watu wa Azimio in the studio. Mika, are you still there?
Ameenda now.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not. Mnanisikia?
Tunakusikia,
tunakusikia live and direct.
Oh, mazeni mute nikasikia ngoma ingine kwa background. One mic ameikachi mapema.
Alikuwa ameslip up.
Ile baya,
Alikuwa
ile baya
ameslip
mouth.
up. Okay. Sawa. Sasa leo tunataka kuongea juu ya Kibaki. We want to have a conversation about the lifetimes of the late Mwai Kibaki. We want to know what impact his presidency had on Kenyans living in the diaspora, and maybe how his legacy compares to that of one Daniel Arap Moi. And there's one thing that happens when there is death in Kenya, and I think this is also part of the African culture. Like there's a tendency to only talk positive, like whenever death happens.
Yes.
And
for
and-
the fear of
yes, but funny enough,
Taki kurogwa.
when the late President Moi died, the country was divided.
Yes.
Kibaki, it seems, like I would say over 90% is just positive stories. But when the late President Moi, passed away, the country was entirely divided. There were some
Yes.
people who were like, this was the greatest, president ever. And there were some people who were like, good riddance. So that's one, quick observation that I made, in as far as the differences between these two. And I guess it may have had to do with the style of leadership both had. Kibaki didn't care much about, control, the limelight, and shows of power. And of course, he was only in power for 10 years. Moi was in power for 24 years.
Right.
So he was a larger than life persona. But let me get started with Mika here. What are some of your fond memories you have of Kibaki? Like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Mika, twende kazi.
All right. Can you hear me, guys?
loud and clear,
loud.
bro.
Yeah, man.
For me, when I remember Kibaki, the first thing I remember about Kibaki, number one thing about Kibaki, I remember is post-election violence. That cannot be, it cannot be swept under the carpet of forgotten. I will remember that swearing in the mid at 7 p.m. at night, and what followed after that. That I will not forget that. Another thing I remember about is the referendum. That is the first time we saw we saw something akin to a revolt in Kenya from the masses, right?
Are you talking about the first or the second referendum?
The first referendum.
Okay, banana and orange.
05.
Banana and
Yeah.
orange, yes. 05. It was something akin to a revolt. Remember that time, Kenya was all about change. Actually, Kibaki himself was a revolution, right? A new dawn, hope in Kenyan politics. This was the first time that we actually can say that we had a free and fair democratic election. An election that we were sure that the people's will was celebrating. Kibaki won the elections clean and fair. Clearly, even there was no way they could have stolen those elections, right? And there was a hope in Kenya, especially in the first months when he appointed those ministries, Kina Karisa Maitha, Kina Nandi. Remember the NAC government? It was called a government of action. So we could see things, right? We started seeing even media outlets portraying news in a more of a freedom of speech way.
They were not
There
scared.
was that.
They were
Yeah,
reporting.
they were not scared. They were reporting. Yeah, they were reporting. And then halfway through that, we saw issues when the NAC government was working. It was going to affect some cartels, right? When the building of the bypass started coming along and people who had grabbed land were supposed to suffer from it. We saw Anglo-leasing coming. Not Anglo-leasing. We saw what was the other one?
Goldenberg.
Kina Murugaru.
Golden Bagama
No.
kulikuwa na sijui Triton. There were so many scandals.
Na kuna hii akina Murungari yenye ilikuwa I think ndio Anglo leasing, yeah, Anglo
Yeah.
leasing ikatokea. The next thing we know, you remember that capture of cocaine that was supposed to be the biggest drug haul in the country, right? Again, it mysteriously disappeared. Now then, after that, Kenya started being like, wait, while we sold hope, what is not happening here? Things are not the way they are. Life became expensive. The economy thrived, but the common mwananchi realized that inflation in Kenya actually started happening in reality, right? When the economy writes itself up, those things that you'll have to pay out of pocket for it to catch up. So Kenyans are not used to that. Things started getting expensive. Basic things, unga, mkate, nini. But people are like, okay, investors are coming, works are opening up, things are doing, right? Development is there. We're seeing work being done. So people took that. Then that revolution that came in with the referendum ya kwanza, then we started seeing the ugly. Atur Sagasian, Atur Magayan, his second family coming out, and the daughters involved in shady things. A report was coming out about his daughter being one of the biggest drug dealers in the country.
Yeah.
And the nation media houses were raided. Right? So we saw a comeback of Moi. His henchmen, Kina Murungaru, Kina Muiraria, being banned from traveling abroad because of corruption, because of the deals they were doing. Then there started being issues, things of revenge politics taking place. Mungiki, right? Extrajudicial killings became rampant. A lot of Mungiki people lost their life, right? A lot of people now got to a point where the extrajudicial killing was affecting families in central Kenya and other parts around. These are the same people who were used to push for that election. So there was some good when you look at the economy and how the economy came on. But then again, the darkness that was related to this country still came back. We lost a vice president and a very powerful minister in a mysterious airplane crash
George
during the
Saitoti.
regime. Yes. So there was still that dark Moi cloud that was showing itself. But we did have some dark days under Kibaki, but we also had development under Kibaki. People say that the economy grew up under Kibaki, which I agree, yes, it grew. But right now, statistically, take about what people talk about. Take about the price of people look. If you look at Kenya's economy, it's risen. But as every high-performing economy, inflation is a real thing, the same way as in America. Our economy is good right now, perfectly better than it was last year. But inflation is high. Same with the UK, same with the countries in Europe, even Russia. Everybody is having an inflation right now, but the economy is good. So necessarily doesn't mean having a perfect economy is good for the common mwananchi, but it's good for the greater good of the country, or for the greater few in the country. Rampant corruption, which you're seeing right now in Kenya, during the coalition government, Nele government again, increased to a point whereby right now, hustling in Kenya is the only way people think is the best way. What do we call hustling? Wash, business deals are uongo, nini. Like everybody's a hustler in Nairobi, even somebody who's employed. Everybody's looking to get rich
Side hustle.
Started during that regime. So for me, I'm sorry, but I don't romanticize Kibaki like everybody else does. I do not. Actually, for me, Uyu Jaden Nyuanga Mnadharau, I actually think he's a better president than him.
Oh, that's an interesting position there. Mika is taking. It's definitely in the minority because Kibaki has been romanticized, especially now in his death, and almost lionized. And yeah, there were some real issues, like that happened during his presidency. that just like in any presidency, you'll always have challenges and you'll always have issues, and you will always have, like some tough things to encounter, as a leader. But to me, the biggest blip in his presidency is 2007. And the reason why I say that is because, and I'm looking at it in two ways. Were it not for 2007, we would not have a new constitution. So to me, I think 2007 was waiting to happen. And I feel if 2007 did not happen, it may have happened in 2013, it may have happened in 2017. So the new constitution, kind of brought back power to the people, whereby if there's a dispute, there's mechanisms to go solve it. You don't have to reach for the sword. Because people had to reach for the sword in 2007 because, once these results were announced, whether they were true or not, there was no Supreme Court to go to. And at that time, if you went to court for an election petition, it could take up to the next election. It could take up to 5 years. And that was remedied by the new constitution, because the new constitution gave very strict time limits to presidential petitions and everything. So I'm looking at it in one way that it's sad that so many people died, but at the same time, we emerged out of it. It was a crisis that was not wasted. We came out with a new constitution and a new way of governance. Now, the thing about, comparing, Kibaki's presidency to Uhuru's presidency is that Uhuru's presidency, we still have to wait, the jury might still be out there. But I think, the problem with Uhuru's presidency is that corruption that was happening during the Kibaki time, it just came supercharged. It became normalized. It became the norm. During Kibaki's time, I want to say it was there amongst senior officials up on Apale, but, I feel like during Uhuru's time, it became so normalized, and it came to a point where you're hearing stories of someone who's, a clerk earning 25,000 shillings a month, but they have, 20 million in their name, and they have apartment buildings, and they have cars, and now the asset recovery agency is coming after them. So these are just some of the things that people, I think, need to contemplate. The other thing about Kibaki's presidency, he brought FPE, or free primary education, and I've never understood, exactly how free this is or how free education is, because every time I hear people asking for money for fees, even people who attend public schools. So I've never understood, almost 17, 18 years after the introduction of FPE, people are still that talk that Kibaki brought free education, but I'm constantly seeing people, asking for money for education. OmoshFaya, maybe give us your thoughts on this and tell us what you think.
Yeah. So I'll just try to touch a little bit on the FPE. FPE, I think the way it works is it is free, but there's some things that you do pay for. I think one of them was things like activity fee or something like that.
Okay.
So, but other than that, it's supposed to be free. Zile pesa watu waga wanaulizaga, we're just diaspora victims. Siko ubaya. It is what it is. In secondary school, they were supposed to be Gava stepping in, but and paying, I think, something like either between 20 to 40K or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the first year of e-Gavaya Kina Uhuru,
Yes.
it was the cheapest time to pay fees for a kid in high school.
Because they paid that 20K, right? Is that what it was? They paid that.
They subsidized.
They were paying
subsidized,
they were taking like 80% of the fees.
Yeah, and
Wakaja.
then so since then it's gone back to you have to pay between 40 to 60 depending on what school the child is going to.
Yeah.
So but anyway, neither here or there. So Kibaki, to me, I remember him from way back, and he was that guy who was the finance guy, the economist, the guy who used to hold up the briefcase.
He was a finance minister in the Kenyatta government.
Yes.
From the Kenyatta government.
And to me, you know, that guy, he was a cool minister. He played golf. You know, he's the guy of, you know, if no one had ever heard of Muthaiga, he was a Muthaiga guy. So, you know, and then all along, then moved on, became, you know, VP, and moved from VP, became pres, and then the good part that he did is like during his time when he was president, the economy woke up. Because it's almost like during Moi's regime, the economy had been
It
stifled.
was at a freeze.
It wasn't frozen. It was open if you were in certain places.
Mm-hmm.
If you were not, ni wewe na Mungu wako. And those people who were in certain